Hi there, we're going to do one starter question today and then we're going to get on with today's work. So we're going to be using Pythagoras theorem to find the length marked x in this triangle here. And remember, because x is one of the shorter sides, when we write down the formula, it's going to be x squared equals 29 squared minus 24 squared. And remember that the thing that goes here has to be the hypotenuse. Okay, so we've got x squared equals, and if we just work out 29 squared, take away 24 squared, we don't need to work them out separately. That's 265. So that's x squared. So x will be the square root of 265, which when we work that out, we get 16.2788 and lots of other decimal places. So if we round that to three significant figures, we've got 16.3 and we need the units as it's a length. Okay, so that was our starter question. We're going to skip straight on and look at what we're learning about today. So we've done all of this factorising already, and today we're going on to factorising by completing the square, but we're not actually going to do any factorising today. What we're going to do today is revision of multiplying out squared brackets, because we need to be really good at that. Okay, so sometimes it helps to have the letter appearing only once in an expression, and we achieve that by completing the square. So that's what we're going to be learning how to do tomorrow. Today we're going to practice multiplying out squared brackets, and our aim really is I want us to find a shortcut for this. So think about this as we're multiplying out these brackets. Can we see a shortcut? Okay, so let's get on then. So multiplying, oopsie-daisy. I always do that, don't I? Multiplying out squared brackets. Remember, we're going to have four terms to start with. So x plus 2 squared is x plus 2 times x plus 2. And then our answers are going to be from these lines x squared. You'll get a plus 2x, another plus 2x, and a 4. Okay, I'm not taking my time over this because we've done lots of practice at multiplying out brackets. Okay, I just want us to see if we can come up with a shortcut. So x squared, and then we've got plus 2x and plus 2x, that gives us plus 4x plus 4. Okay, the next one, we're doing y plus 5 squared. So we've got y plus 5 times y plus 5. So our terms are going to be y times y is y squared, y times 5 is 5y, 5 times y is another 5y, and 5 times 5 is 25. So there we've got y squared plus 10y plus 25. Okay, I want us to be paying attention to what we can spot about each of these that they've got in common. Okay, see if we can come up with a shortcut. Okay, next one, t minus 3 squared. So it's t minus 3 times t minus 3. So t times t is t squared. T times negative 3 is minus 3t. Negative 3 times t is another negative 3t. And then we've got negative 3 times negative 3 is plus 9. So we've got t squared minus 6t plus 9. Right, the next one, we don't have a single letter at the beginning. We've got 2t here. So it's 2t minus 1 times 2t minus 1. So we're doing it exactly the same way. 2t times 2t is 4t squared. 2t times negative 1 is negative 2t. Negative 1 times 2t is another negative 2t. And then negative 1 times negative 1 is plus 1. So we've got 4t squared minus 4t plus 1. Okay. So I want us to be thinking about, as we're doing this last one, thinking about where these terms come from. Think about the signs of the terms that we end up with, and we'll pay attention to our last one when we just had a little think about these. Okay, so in the first one we had x plus 2 squared. So our first term when we multiplied that out came from the first two things in the brackets multiplied together. And because the two brackets are the same, it means this multiplied by itself. So that gives you x squared. Okay, here the first thing we got was this times itself, so that's y squared. Here, t squared. Here, 4t squared. Okay, let's look at the number on the end each time. That came from the last two things multiplied together. Okay, in other words, because they're the same, it's this times itself. So it's 2 squared is 4, 5 squared is 25, negative 3 squared, so that's negative 3 times negative 3 is plus 9, and then negative 1 times negative 1 is plus 1. Okay, so let's have a look at this last one before we have a think about all these terms. I want you to think about the middle term particularly as we're doing this last one. Okay, so our first term here is going to come from 5x times 5x, so that's 25x squared. Let's make that a bit smaller because I'm going to need to fit it on. Oops, daisy. So then we've got 5x times 3y, so that's plus 15xy. Then we've got 3y times 5x, so again we've got 15 and x times y. And then we've got 3y times 3y is 9y squared. So altogether we've got 25x squared, we've got 30xy, and we've got 9y squared. Okay, so what we're going to think about now is, can we see what the shortcut is? Can we start off with a squared bracket and go straight to the simplified version when we multiply it out? So can we start with the bracket squared and go straight to the answer? Well, we've spotted already that the first term comes from the first thing in the bracket squared. So we can write that down just now anyway. So a plus b squared, first thing you're going to get is a squared. Okay, the last thing we get, remember, is this thing squared. So it's the second term in the bracket squared. Okay, because the brackets are the same as each other and it comes from the last term times the last term. So that must be the last term squared. Okay, so you've got 5 squared, or 5 times 5, negative 3 times negative 3, negative 1 times negative 1. So if we've got b here, we're going to have a plus b squared on the end. Now let's have a look at this middle term. Each time we've got a middle term, it's come from two identical things that have been combined, hasn't it? And that thing comes from the outsides multiplied together and the insides multiplied together. Now don't forget, when these two brackets are the same as each other, that's basically all we're doing is the first term times the second term, and we have it twice. Okay, so what you would have here is the first term times the second term, like we've got here, 5 times y, twice, negative 3t, so t times negative 3 is negative 3t, got that twice. And then we've got 2t times negative 1, that's negative 2t, twice. Okay, so in the middle here, we would have a times b, which is ab, twice. So basically we've got 2ab. Okay, so this is our shortcut, that when you're multiplying out a squared bracket, you get the first term squared, you get the two things multiplied together and doubled, and you get the last thing squared. But I want you to notice that regardless of whether we've got a plus or a minus in the brackets here, this last term is always positive, because it's always something squared, so it means something multiplied by itself, and something multiplied by itself will always have to be positive because the signs match. So remember that the last term is always positive. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just practice using this without showing any working. So we're going to use our rule that's at the top of the page here, this shortcut, and we're going to expand these squared brackets without writing down any working. So remember what we get when we've got k plus 3 squared. The first thing we get is the first thing squared, so that'll give us k squared. Then we've got k times 3, two things multiplied together, look, a, b, multiplied together and doubled. So that gives us 3k when we multiply them, so we would have 6k when we double that. And then you've got this thing squared, so plus 9. Okay, next one. You get the first thing squared. You multiply the two things together and double it. So m times negative 10 is negative 10m, and when you double that, you get negative 20m. And then the third term is this thing squared. So negative 10 times negative 10 is plus 100. And remember, this last term's always going to be positive. Okay, the next one. First thing squared. Multiply the two things together and double it. So that gives you negative 8c doubled is minus 16c. And then you need to multiply this by itself, which gives you plus 64. Okay. Last one here. Then we've just got a couple more that are a little bit different. So first thing squared is L squared. Multiply them together, you get LM. So you need two of them. And then the third thing is the M squared. Okay. So a little bit more practice. These are two slightly different ones, just to make sure we've definitely got the hang of it. So this one. The first thing squared, so that's 2y times 2y is 4y squared. Multiply these two together and you get 6y. So double that, we get plus 12y. And then the last thing squared, 3 squared is 9. And then our last one, I've just done this one with the terms the other way around in the bracket. So the first term squared is 5 squared, so that's 25. Multiply the two things together, that would give you negative 10x, and double that, so that gives you negative 20x. And then you've got negative 2x times negative 2x, so that's going to be plus, because it's negative times a negative. 2 times 2 is 4, x times x is x squared. So we could write this one the other way round. We could change the order of the terms and say it's 4x squared, whoops, not plus, minus 20x plus 25. Okay, so I've put some practice questions for you to have a go at. Just make sure you practice doing it without showing any working, okay? Because tomorrow I want us to be really good at this so we can come back to it and we can work backwards. So we're creating a squared bracket from a trinomial rather than multiplying out a square bracket to get a trinomial. Okay, so good luck with this and I'll see you tomorrow.